Yeah, the pet peeve is when you're IT, but you have AV problems and you're not an AV engineer. um, so I think everybody's seen some version of this diagram, and somehow I found one that had 12 options. The whole like how a customer explains it, which we know we're like, this makes no sense. Then how your project leader understood it, which I'm not clear who the project leader is supposed to be, probably your sponsor. Because this swing is not swinging anywhere, it's on this trunk. And then how the analyst designs it versus how the programmer writes it. And then our beta testers or QAs. It's kind of depressing. Given how number 4 was, I could see why number 5 happened. And then if you're lucky enough to have consultants involved, you get a nice, very comfy swing over here. And then of course nobody does documentation. We all hate it. It's just a shadow, right? We opened a file template and said, yeah, there's your documentation. And then what operations actually installed, how the customer was billed, and then support, I think how operations installed and support are related, especially to the documentation. And then marketing, well, they'll do their thing to earn their salary, right? And then what the customer really needed.
All right, so it's a great kickoff. So feel free, folks. So a couple of rules. It's supposed to be light. It's not supposed to be pointed in any one direction. Please try to keep these as IT related as they are. There are some ones on here that are not IT related. They're chapter related, but let's still touch upon them and address them. That's what we're here for, because this is a group and we want to hear what everybody has to say, because that's the only way we're going to grow the chapter. So, all right, so just doing it in order of the ones I was given here. So let's start with this one. It says, so anyway, the other rule was don't come with just a pet peeve, come with a solution, right? So that was what I was brought up to do, because I lived in New York. There was a rule.
That is
That is the
entirety of the pet peeve.
And yeah, so let's see. People who, so this is not a humorous peeve. People who only do what they are told to do without question and do not ask why or suggest different solutions do not learn. Self-limit their careers. It can be difficult to deal with. Boy, do I ever agree with that.
Yeah, but it could be humorous if you ever do the peanut butter and jelly sandwich exercise.
Absolutely. But
that one's mine.
Oh, is it?
Explain.
Yeah, please. Please elaborate.
This is where we will.
Okay.
Yeah.
And for those who are attending, don't fall off your seats. John Coffey has actually turned up. So in person. So.
And that's not a pet peeve.
To show up again. Let's see. So yeah. Anyway, that one was mine, and I've got an example of that person in my organization, or not now for me, but
What a good subject.
And it's
Good subject. No, make a good
with that kind of personality where I don't know what happened to him.
Eagle proposal.
It's not Connie.
Blinders on, and the person on the network team, and we asked, like, how do you firewall reviews every 6 months? So why is this rule here? Well, I don't know. I was just told to put it in. Yeah. Or, what is this? Don't you know what servers these things connect to? Don't you ever ask? Don't you ask why you want these network changes? No, just doesn't. And
That's a
my
person who has.
I don't know. Ask the architects. So
Next thing is a pretty tall building, so you told him,
Yeah.
jump off, would you do it? Or not question it?
I don't. Maybe that, but if it had to do with networking, no.
But that's somebody who has a job, not a career.
Yeah,
Quite
well,
honestly.
exactly. That was my point. At least my solution anyway is I coach all my staff. Don't leave them. Because if you want to advance in understanding what it is you're doing and why. And the reasons why things are being done the way they are, or those don't make sense, question it.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Unfortunately, these days, especially with the job market as is, that person will still have to work no matter what. I mean, just because there are managers, there are leaders who just say, go do it. And occasionally that's fine, right? But sometimes they can't just
So
do their own stuff.
how have people coped with that kind of person in their own organization in the past?
That's a good question.
Well, some commentary on it. The way I've always thought about this is that in IT, not specifically, there's a lot of industries with a lot of bright people, but IT has a lot of bright people. And I think often in a conference room or a meeting setting, people get intimidated. And they don't want to be the one that says, well, hey, what about this? Or that doesn't make sense. And you always hear someone like leaving the meeting, they go, well, that's stupid, we should have done the 79457 match instead of the 639. And it's like, well, why didn't you say that when we were in there?
Right.
You know?
Right.
So I think what comes into play a lot is there may be the job versus career thing, but it's a personality thing that you're dealing with as well. And in IT, you get this crazy mix of really intelligent people, but often introverted people.
Right.
The guy who likes to just stay in the cube and code, and he doesn't even know how to ask or to get to that next level. So I think on its face, it seems like a simple thing, but I think it's pretty complicated.
So how do you as leaders coax the shy person? Because that sounds like a shy person.
Yeah, like shy
Um,
or introverted.
What I typically do is, I put the onus on them. If they come to me and I say, well, you're the expert. I mean, I'm the guy who signs paychecks and manages chaos. I herd kittens. You're the expert. You tell me what you think we should do, and then maybe we'll put it to the team and we'll get some other input. And at the end of the day, I always champion the best idea, whomever it comes from. And I look forward to people to, knock me off my throne. Don't let me be the brightest guy in the room. If I were, I'd probably still be engineering. It's like I peaked out at a certain level. So yeah, that's the way I do it.
So that leads to another question here, because this is exactly the conversation that we started off with, Dr. Dan, right? With regards to people who are on the autism spectrum, they're going to be more likely the type of person that is going to be sitting in the back room, not saying anything. This sucks. This is stupid. Right?
Yeah, I didn't know that you all were hearing that. All right, so yeah,
Well, we talked about it at the board meeting too,
Yeah,
so
that's
it's
true.
yeah. It certainly is where it might not be the right thing to say to somebody. You need to speak up. We need to create an environment where speaking up is a safe activity, right? Or you need to also create an environment where people who maybe lack tact, that are just going to go ahead and just blurt it out and say, like, the emperor's got no clothes, or this is stupid, that we need to allow for maybe some sharper edges in without taking things personal. Those are going to all be characteristics of somebody that might be, say, on the spectrum. But I'm going to throw out, personally, I think that people that typically, I have no data on this, I have zero data, but it's a working hypothesis that I think might be great to try on for a little bit, which is, we're all kind of on the spectrum. We're in IT. We're not in sales and marketing, right? In other words, we fundamentally are going to lack a little bit of this, and maybe if we could create, give a little more grace and do a little less grumbling, it might not be a bad outcome.
I don't know how many of you have done what do they call it? It's one of the boxes, and where you fall from your personality
Yeah.
like
perspective.
the disc stuff.
And it's how you rank yourself versus how your peers rank you. I don't know about the rest of you. Everybody thought of me kind of, I railed against it as more. And then I rah-rahed against it. So, so it was one of those weird situations, because I always thought as more the the pensive, more, you know, geeky kind of person, because that's the way I was thought IT was supposed to be. And so then when you come to realize that, and then you go over, and it's like, you folks are the fun ones, right? So I hung out with all of those people in the group, and you come to embrace it. Now you don't expect somebody, you know, that's really got potentially something where too much input is going to cause a problem for them. But in general, you can pull people out by just putting those groups together. And then the other thing too is, before we move on, I think a lot of it has to do with the way that the leadership behaves, right? Jim, you've certainly we've had some very interesting town halls where people speak up. They will say that something's not right, and the leader who's at the front of the room takes it personally
And slaps them down, right?
and slaps them down. So it's,
That's
and
really
now,
going to encourage open
Yes.
conversation.
and what happens is you get the fight or flight from the leader, and now because they're up at the front of the room and they've got the gavel, they fight. And that just squashes everything.
So I don't know if this is true or not, but I read that Elon Musk encourages everyone that works engineers to call him directly if they have an idea that they think might improve a process, be beneficial to the company. And that gets back to fostering what Dan said, the safe environment for that. And I hope that's true. And another analogy that I give my team sometimes is that imagine we're on a car and there's a flat tire or there's a problem with the car. And we've got the CISO in there, the CIO, we've got me, and you get like, I don't really care who fixes it. Whoever's best at it, you go out and do it. I'm not gonna say, well, I'm the manager, I'm gonna get out there, this is my job, I'm a leader, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna look around and say like, oh, Gary, you've done this 100 times? Dude, I think you should be doing this. That makes the most sense to me. I could
There's a joke in there.
pontificate all night on this.
I'm assuming everybody's heard the joke about the electrical engineer, the mechanical engineer, the industrial engineer, and the Windows administrator who are all in the car together going to work. There goes looks under the hood. I'm sure that there's a problem with the electrical system. Looks like it can't get to work. Mechanical engineer says it's got to be a belt, it's got to be a hose, it's something like, I'll take care of that. Can't figure out what it is. And the Windows administrator comes back and says, when these things happen, all we do is close all the windows and open them up again.
No, that's how I know a car is dying, is when the windows won't roll up.
That's a very good point.
Time to get a new one.
All right, next. All right, I'll start with one of these. We'll go back and forth. Send dinner money to scholarships. It says, and I'll read the entire pet peeve. We renew our memberships thinking we would have nice dinners out at a meeting. It is not a donation for scholarships. That is a separate request. In addition, the food is significantly less than at the college. Now, I don't know who put this one in, and I don't even want to know. I can tell you that tonight's meal was pretty darn good, for one thing. Secondly, from a purposes of what the board was doing, we came to this decision because we wanted to say that we were not hoarding money, right? During the pandemic, we couldn't go and, well, what were we gonna do? Send out an Uber Eats card to everybody? So we decided to do the next best thing and actually try to use those dollars in a positive way, and I think we did, and I think we have been doing that. Anybody have any concerns, opinions? I mean, obviously, we can't let Dan in on this one, but other than that.
Well, as the past president, I feel I had to comment on this. So, no, I absolutely we understand the frustration of the last 18 months. We haven't been able to do our usual get-togethers, had the great meals. Though, since we've started up in person again, though, here, the meals have been fantastic, I have to say. So it's definitely worth the trip down at Galvanize. Mark is right. We had to pivot pretty quickly, right? We were in the middle of a membership year. you've got to remember the key tenets of SIM, what SIM is about, right? SIM's about continuous learning, networking, but also giving back to the community, right? And giving back to the community, it involves sponsoring and nurturing the STEM education of the next generation of people who are going to come and take our jobs, right? That's what we're here to do. So we agreed as a board, and we did discuss the alternatives. We definitely discussed sending cards and meal cards and things. But we felt it was good as a core tenet of SIM for at least this, what we consider to be a temporary situation, to put a little bit extra that year into sponsoring STEM education and scholarships, right? So it's not a permanent pivot. It's never intended to be. We will get back to business as usual. But I think all of us would probably agree that it's important that we're creating the next generation of workers and leaders. Right? So, TJ's got something to say.
As the youngest person in the room, I want to point out that if we're not funding scholarships, then I don't want to hear anything about not having a talent pipeline. Like if we want to not spend the money on it, then great. Every year I see some kind of topic about how we don't have a talent pipeline. So it's one or the other we're not complaining about though.
Well, it goes back to what we said in the beginning. You don't provide a problem, provide a solution. And I think that's kind of what we were doing here, right? That being said, I think this brings up another topic for the board and re-look at it, right? I mean, it's perfect timing, right? It's going to be start of a new year. And how much do we want to donate? Do we want to go back to the way it was, where it was just about whether or not we got money from people doing surveys and things like that? So we can look at that again.
Can I ask Dan to comment as well? I mean, you see the practical benefit of this on the ground, right? So.
Oh, absolutely.
Just talk a bit about the real impact it's made to young people's lives.
It's a huge topic for young people. When I have students that can't do their work because they're pulling two jobs. I mean, during the pandemic, I had a number of students that had to pull out because their parents' business collapsed, and they're pulling 3 jobs and trying to go to school at the same time. So if we can help some of them to not have to work 3 jobs, that's a legitimate topic. And I also would suggest that sometimes we live in a bubble of, how do I say this? A rich IT people bubble, right? We all know what it's like to get a salary that has commas in it, and you forget what it's like to be a student that you gave plasma to get $10 so you could do laundry and go out that week, right? And that's so it does make a big difference. It even makes a psychological difference and gives hope even beyond the dollar value. So yeah, thanks. I'm sure there are other things, but one of the topics that I believe we talked about is the impracticality of how do you give, say, $30 back to me when ASU paid for my membership. They're trying to return $30 to ASU will cost us $3,000. So
That's fair, right? Like even as a project manager, when we were trying to have like project team celebrations, sending out like the gift cards for the delivery services was a nightmare. Everybody lived in a different part of the valley, served by different services, and there was a complete, like, you basically had to have a spreadsheet per person and manually go in and spend half a day just to have a 2-hour celebration with your team.
But I would also say that if there's someone that was more than a pet peeve and it impacted their future, that they should come to talk to Alan, talk to the board. And if you need a refund, hey, I'd rather entertain that than entertain this question.
Yeah, well, this is John. I've got a comment on that. I totally agree with what Dan is saying and what Simon said earlier. And I think it's a very noble goal that the board has chosen last year and this year to do that. So this sounds to me like one of these pet peeves that's actually in the pet peeve category of maybe 1 or 2 people, and really not, I don't think we should overreact to it. It's good to know that a couple of people feel this way. And perhaps maybe the thing to do is just to talk about it, and instead of overreacting to it, just to talk about it, maybe put some blurb out or something, some statement out that talks about everything, Mark, that you just said, and everything that Simon said and what Dan said. Statement that we're supporting the education of the future leaders, which what SIM is all about. And so that's what we would like to do. And then just entertain commentary from people and get them out of the anonymous category into the,
Yep.
But I
what
would
do they
say,
really,
if there's a takeaway for us, maybe we need to do better communication around this topic. We definitely did talk about it at one of the monthly events. I spoke about it actually at one of the monthly events. But of course, that's one point in time. Not everybody attended that. Maybe more of a general communication would have been important there. But anyway.
Well, yeah, and I think it's also kind of a marketing thing too, right? We should put this type of thing out on LinkedIn. As a society of information management, we should be putting our money where our mouth is, right? We're saying that there is a pipeline problem. We're saying that we need to get in front of younger generation. This is absolutely the best way to do it, especially during the time of a pandemic when you can't personally mentor somebody. I mean, you could do it via a Zoom meeting, I suppose, but I mean, this is actually helping somebody in a real and tangible way. So,
Very good.
I have two questions on that. That wasn't mine. But since you brought it up, how much did we give so we're not patting ourselves on the back for the impact? And then
yeah, it's a good. I don't have the numbers, but Dan, I'm sure you probably know.
the second one, if this is something we're saying now is important, then should we consider that as something that's ongoing rather than, well, now that things are good again next year?
I mean, we always do give scholarships, but we obviously gave more
Different amount.
as an extraordinary amount.
So I think we typically give about $6,000 in $2,000 increments, so we give 3 scholarships of $2,000. And then this past year, we added another.
What was it, Dan? Do you remember off the top of your head?
I'm having trouble hearing.
Yeah.
Sure, Dan?
The extra, because normally around 6,000, right? And we gave.
Yeah. So we did more scholarships, but we also did the sponsored the SciTech Festival this year to get more STEM and junior high students engaged, as well as the college students. And I can get the details on that and send that out.
It might be worthwhile for us to actually publish that, right? I mean, and maybe it's good feedback to the membership in general, right? Just to say we're doing this, and this might have been in retrospect, maybe this would have been a good meeting to do it because we're not highlighting students, right? Because you don't want to make people uncomfortable when they're receiving your money, right? Look what we did for all these other kids, right?
That's part of it, right? Like, we typically do this in person where we invite the recipients to get like a big check, but because of pandemic conditions, we chose not to. And it's hard to say, hey, I didn't want my dinner money going to this kid sitting right next to me.
Right. Yeah, that's a hard one.
Yep.
All right, let's move on.
Moving on, yes, we beat that one to death. So this is really circular. My pet peeve is when solutions or ways to relate to. Do we need to talk about this anymore? Because I think
we're done with that
yeah,
one.
We're kind of moving on. And a related one, whining. Oh boy, this is the reason why I'm not president. Complaining to leadership about another teammate's behavior without him proposing a solution, remedy, or reasoning. Behavior that amounts to tattling to a teacher, expecting a pat on the head and punishment for the other party, even when the behavior has nothing to do with getting bleep done. I mean, yeah, I completely agree with that, and I'd like to get some feedback here if anybody else has experienced this. Big company, right? So you get more of this, but yesterday was, well, it's been 8 days since we've done back to the office. So December 8th was the first day, was a Wednesday. And for the folks in infrastructure, it was supposed to be Wednesday, Thursday, and then a floating day. Of course, it becomes into a tattletale. Why isn't this team there? Why isn't that team there? Why does this team have people that are out of the state? Why did they allow for these things?
We're allowed to move.
Absolutely, right? And I would like, if it was somebody on my team, I would tell them, you need to leave, because that's not what we're trying to promote here. Right? I mean, you've got a job market that's really, really tough right now. And there are a lot of people who decide that best defense is a good offense. And I really despise that idea, right? If you can't look within yourself to try to be better. So I'll get off my soapbox on that one, but any other?
No, I struggle with that. I have a tattleteller on my team. No names mentioned, but I have a tattleteller, and it's something that I struggle with as a manager, because I love the people side of it. I always have, and I feel very comfortable in that role. But there's a point where I want to say that, is this important, and how does this add to revenue? Like, I mean, I get it, you're frustrated.
Yeah.
Maybe you should leave. I don't know what to do at this point, and it's a fine line that you have to walk, because you can get sucked into a very complex social problem between two other individuals, and take your eye off of the job and what you're supposed to do. And the bottom line is, I'm in security. I am there to secure business goals and business functions so that the doors stay open. So it's a huge struggle. And to Mark's point, with this one, and without a resolution, it's like, okay, I get it. You're a high performer, and you're doing most of the work. What's your solution? What are you going to do about it? Have you talked to this person? It's really frustrating. And when you're in the midst of, 6 or a dozen complicated production issues, and you're having to stop and deal with that, it's very frustrating. But it is part of the job. It's something that has to be done. So I guess the larger point I'm just trying to make is I struggle with it. It's difficult. It's really difficult.
And I want to go back and do exactly the same thing and point out how petty it is.
Yeah.
Because my first reaction is, you obviously don't have enough work to do.
Yeah.
I've got plenty of work.
Yeah.
Can I give you some?
Take your mind off this.
Yeah.
That's a good response.
Yeah, I mean, why do you spend so much time in that environment with that mindset? So, anyway, any other responses that they don't need their lawyer for?
Sounds like the last 18 months we've regressed to kindergarten.
Yes,
Anyway,
yes.
I completely agree, Simon. It's really unfortunate. Well, and it's kind of the road rage idea, right? When you're sitting behind a Zoom meeting, if you feel comfortable, you can throw things out the window, right?
Or like I've heard it as a keyboard warrior, where you're like IMing someone on the side, all your like dumb frustrations, because it's available. You don't have to be
Absolutely.
obvious.
I mean,
I think there's a whole conversation about people who lost some social skills, like some business social skills,
Yeah.
and how to be around colleagues and know work with them. It's a genuine problem.
it's all sitting while you're there in your gym clothes.
But isn't there perhaps some amount of responsibility as leaders to try to coach them? That one and the previous one, say you presented a problem, how about if we try to work through solutions?
Sure.
If you have a problem first, how have you tried to address this? What are some ideas? Maybe we can work through some ideas together so that they learn how to solve this. Right.
Right.
It seems like there's some amount of responsibility.
So this is where I get really dangerous, because my formal education is in psychology. And you will, basic Psych 101, most adults changes or influence some behavior, but if someone by nature is just prone to being a whiner, complainer, victim mentality, it's very difficult to change that.
Excuse to turn this into a marriage thing. Ask any wife who tried to get their husband to change.
I'm more optimistic. See a lot of success.
All right, well, I think we beat that one to death too. Next one, very timely. Log4j. So, I mean, you know what? This is a pet peeve, right? And I would imagine that most of the folks in this room are dealing with this.
What is the pet peeve around Log4j?
So, well, it first it
How
just
the hell
says
did it happen?
critical vulnerability affecting almost every company on the planet. And it's not a pet peeve, it's a pet pandemic. I mean, this.
Look, I have a huge pet peeve about people who don't patch systems, right? I'm sorry, patch your shit, right? Just have to do it. But in this case, this is a
Right.
0-day attack.
It's a zero, well,
This is a situation where you just got to do it now, right? But cyber hygiene in general, to me, is a massive pet peeve. People are just atrocious in cyber hygiene.
yeah, and that ties right back into problems with not upgrading, sitting on old stuff. As my wife likes to say, there's a cost for doing nothing.
The other, normally I'm not a guy. Who talks about this.
Well, this is great.
So,
Please.
I do this due diligence on companies. One of the things related to this, not in particular, we're always talking to tech companies about is dependency management. And most companies that I talk to don't have dependency manager tools, or they'll name package managers, which is not the same thing. It's dependency manager, they'll use a star, so they're always getting whatever the latest is of some third party, open source thing, which means somebody puts something in there.
Yeah.
They just automatically get it without it having gone through the checks. Dependency.
Any other
Yeah, I mean, I was reading a pet peeve, but
it is what it is, and we're still in the middle of it. Maybe next month we can talk about, what we found coming out of this, but.
all I can say is no very good instant response company.
Some person's peeve is a marketing campaign. All right, this is a good one, because I have leadership who can't use a PC.
Okay.
Personal computers have been around far too long that many or most business leaders still don't have basic computer skills. It's crazy that we burn time responding to tickets that the average 9-year-old could solve. And in a lot of cases, they may have gone to their 9-year-old as first level support.
That's good.
It's the truth. I remember when my first real IT job, I still can't believe this, the CEO of the company was using Lotus 123 version 1.2.
What?
It was something that was actually ported from CPM.
Well, that either means they never upgraded the software, or you're just very old.
You, Mark, you're talking about the early 1980s, I think.
Yeah, but this was 1998 when I heard.
Wow.
So yeah.
We have a client, it's a very big law firm in town here, and the lead partner has his assistant print out every single email and give it to him in paper form, which he then hand annotates to give that to be responded to. Oh, yeah.
Did that include spam?
Sir, there's an email from a Nigerian prince who wants to give you. Anyone else want to chime in on that? I mean, I just love this particular topic because, let's take another one. Again, large company, right? And you bring executives to be in a town hall meeting, and they want to show about how they are so in tune with IT, but they don't know anybody in the room.
Oh, no.
you know, it's like 17 layers removed to the biggest applications that support the business. So who's the people they know? People that support their desktop that they go rely upon every single day, you know,
Yeah,
and
your
ask
white
them,
glove
you know,
IT
how to
people.
make it so that their password 123 can't be used again. You know, and so
Cyber hygiene.
I'm just winding Simon up here. Okay. All right, well, going back to another chapter one, and we can just kind of talk about this. Dues. A portion of our dues is to pay for our meal at the meeting. Well, you know what?
Same one.
Same one. All right, not gonna go there. Not gonna go there. Job postings. I hate when entry-level jobs require 3+ years of experience, or when a company combines
This is
multiple
gonna get
technical
Dr. Dan.
domains into a single unicorn position. Yes. So Dan, how did you get a burner account?
I did not submit that one.
Oh, no?
No.
So, well, I mean, I completely agree, but I mean,
That has changed in the last 6 months, right?
Yeah.
People will take anyone now.
Well, I don't know. People are still looking for unicorns because they're like so short-handed that they need the one unicorn to
well,
fix
and
everything.
that's exactly right. I mean, I'm in that position right now, as I was saying
You're the
before the
unicorn?
meeting started. No comment. The gentleman who, right after we had our big meeting about cloud, he up and left and is our cloud architect and found the position, and I knew it was going to happen eventually. And now I'm out there and I've literally got one resume and I've already thrown it out. And so, you know, it may just very well be time. Dan, I'll be contacting you soon. Because, you know, it might just be worthwhile to go and do this, because to a certain extent, you know, energy, the technologies that are being used, right? I love my team, but we've been with the company for a long time, a lot of us. And so we haven't experienced all of this new stuff. We haven't been trained in some cases, or we're too busy doing our damn day job to be able to learn all of this stuff. Meanwhile, a student's day job has been to learn all of this stuff. So, I mean, to me, it might very well be the perfect opportunity. Now, but you got any pink unicorns out there, Dan?
No, but I do have a few employers that are turning into unicorns. The coaching that we've been giving is stuck with a couple of them. In fact, one company went so far as to, instead of changing all of their job requirements that were unattainable, I suggested that instead of saying these are requirements, say that within 18 months you should be proficient in. And they made one line change and it changed everything. In other words, it wasn't about what did the applicant have, it was what the company could give to the applicant, right? And ultimately, I think that there is a and I don't want to sound like I'm so woke, because that's not what I'm trying to do, because that could swing on the other side. But I do think that what we're doing isn't working. So doing something different might be useful, and just finding the right candidates, and realize that ultimately, I think we need to grow our own people. And it doesn't make a difference what you're looking for if you can't find it. It matters not what the price is. So you might as well attract people to apply. And usually what I find is that once they talk to these students or these candidates, it changes everything when they become humans versus, you know, profiles. And it's just a thought. I got a couple internships that are, one company submitted 10 internships. And again, it was about what was the intern going to get out of it versus what the company was going to get. And I'm so excited to present these as opportunities. I think they're going to have problems filtering candidates, which ultimately was the goal. And I'm also finding a third employer that is looking at saying, well, what do we have to do? I've got a audacious growth plans right now. The only hope we have is to say that we'll do things that most traditional firms won't. And it's embracing them as human beings, embracing them as part of a culture, embracing them as what their potential would be. They talk about the training, the opportunities that they would give, and they're doing the other thing, which is they're handling or dangling out there the idea of international candidates with the optional practical training and with green cards and with salaries commensurate, saying that why wouldn't we do this, as opposed to how can we do this? And I wonder if some of those things won't have a big impact. So that was a really long answer, but it's pointless to keep asking for something you can't get.
That's very true. Yeah, because it's definition of insanity.
Yeah, and Dan, I really appreciate the thing about grow your own, because we're a small company, but we're in cybersecurity. Cybersecurity, you can't get the love and the money, at least good ones, right? So
Yep, and in fact, one of the employers is looking for cybersecurity, and they know that there's nothing you can't find it. So maybe we're talking about the idea of finding a summer internship where they go get a CompTIA, they get a few certs, and that maybe AZ Next could be the thing to help pay for some certs during the summer, but you pay them to work for you part-time during the school year, and then you hire them when they graduate in a year. That might be a reasonable pipeline that you could do, because you're going to be in the same position. You're only going to be worse off 12 months from now than you are right now in terms of hiring.
absolutely. So one of my best cyber analysts, who I would put up in front of anybody, 18 months ago, he was a help desk guy.
Yeah.
Right? But he had a passion, and he spent his evenings and weekends building a lab and learning cybersecurity. And, I think for cybersecurity, particularly, pretty much in this world, if you can take somebody who's been a good Windows sysadmin, they could definitely turn into a cybersecurity. If they've got the passion of the right? So growing your own, couldn't agree more, Dan. Excellent.
So, yeah, towards that end, one other quick question, Dan, that, for somebody who hasn't done this yet, it's perception versus reality. So let's see what I'd like to see. If you're going to go down this road and you're going to, just say, what the hell, let's go do this. The expectation from a hiring manager who's been doing this forever and ever would be that now I'm going to get the most eager person ever to learn and do that, but I'm probably imposing a little bit too much, and then I start to be, well, so that's a whole millennial thing, and I don't want to go down that road, right? Because that is a circular reasoning, but so what I just want to be able to do is say, what is reasonable? And based upon what you've seen with bringing in, some of your students, what's the feedback you're getting from these companies?
Yeah, no, I mean, you're raising a really, really good point. And it is really difficult because the old person, the boomer in me, gets frustrated when my students fundamentally ask questions like, what's the bare minimum I can do to get an A in this paper? Okay, because that's what that's kind of what they say, and that doesn't play well. It doesn't play well with older people. And yet at the same time, I'm going to say they're our kids. We raised them this way. Stop making them wrong for who they are. You're not going to fix it. They will determine when that happens in their own life. And trust me, I think that your parents and the boss's boss before you felt the same way about everyone in this room. I think Plato bitched about how entitled his students were, that they didn't know how to study. Okay.
Socrates bitched about Plato.
There you go. So I guess, and the other thing that I can tell you is that this generation of worker knows if they're being looked down upon, and they will work to the level that they're being looked down to. If you accept them for where they are and challenge them to say, we love you the way you are, but I'm going to challenge you to go hit this target, in a reasonable amount of time with a reasonable amount of resources, that would be a better approach than making them wrong or saying that they're cringy. And I know all of the issues, and we can have a pet peeve session and bitch about them, and I will tell you that you will end up being irrelevant and non-influential in the future, when ultimately, as you age, as we get more experience, we want to be more relevant and more have a greater impact. So I'm going to say that my pet peeve is listening to people bash what the shortcomings of the new labor force is, because it just doesn't work. It makes no business sense to do so. It may feel good for the moment, but it is bad business. TJ.
Tell them to get off my lawn.
Your lawn is personal property.
I would encourage everybody to do reverse mentoring.
Yes.
Right? Get mentored by a young person, right? You'll learn.
Well, here's a
lot,
perfect example. Both of my daughters decided that they were not going to be like my wife and I. They were not going to sit behind a desk. So now I have occupational therapists and I have a speech and language pathologist in my realm. Now it's going to be great as I get older because they're going to kick my ass, right? But on the other side, they decided they didn't want to live this life.
Yep.
And so, but I can also then use that to say, well, what's that going, you know, why is that not palatable at this point? What can I do to make it more
What's
palatable?
different?
for
Yeah.
them?
Who wouldn't want to live this life? It's so glamorous.
What is it, the log J4 thing?
So
Yeah.
we're just conscious of time. We've got a few minutes. Do you want to just see if anybody on the call's got a?
Yeah,
got a pet
Because I
peeve?
think we've hit most of
Yeah,
this
so,
stuff,
so while we're checking, I do want to add to the whole like one line added to your job description thing. There, Dr. Dan, I love that idea of like, this is what you'll learn. But the other option I've seen is the line that says you don't have to meet 100% of these requirements to apply. Please apply anyway. And that makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
Anybody on the call?
Yeah, any pet peeves about our pet peeves? I mean, again, boy, we do sound old. We're just, you know,
We do.
what do we do at the end of the year? We put a bitch and moan session on.
All right, so can I give you a young person's pet peeve? Employers, please respond. I got your resume. Please respond. You don't meet our qualifications at this time. Thank you. Or maybe look for, respond. They get nothing. They get nothing.
No, feedback matters.
No feedback.
That's a great one.
Yeah.
And that one resume, I haven't done that on yet, so I'm
Yeah,
just as
Mark.
guilty as anyone else.
You had one job.
I had one
Yeah.
job. To end my reminder.
There you go. Yeah.
So,
Because I remember when we were doing like interns, and I realized that when we did like interviews and said no as a group, like who was responsible for telling that that candidate that they didn't get the job? Like that was very much like because I was so fresh from it, I took it on myself to do it. But like I'm sure on the typical day, like we don't think about it.
it's true. Anyone else?
I was going to submit a pet peeve, but it's a whole new topic, but we're not going to do it now. But I'll just lodge it in your ear. Vendors going direct to the business people and selling solutions.
No.
Well, okay.
I can assure you, in my old job at the bank, oh my lord, that was the worst thing.
No, I've got marketing people going out to vendors to get a solution because their like global corporate couldn't figure out an enterprise solution for them.
Yeah. Anyway, that is a whole
You guys, a
topic.
lot of you guys have met Jim and my boss's boss, Jim Johnston, and he's been at meetings. Jim, there was one point in time where there was a vendor who reached out to me. I told them, no, I'm not interested. And they literally circled to our CIO and brought him into the conversation, which stirred all kinds of stuff at the top level. Why aren't we thinking about this? Why aren't we doing this stuff? And so Jim sent the best email I've ever seen under the category of, why won't you ever do business with your company ever again? Let me give you some unsolicited advice. It was spectacular.
Oh my God.
I'm like, I wanted to
That's the position we
literally
took.
laminate that and put that up on the wall.
That's the
Yep,
position.
yep.
We had stern and frank conversations with salespeople. If you ever go around us, we're going to cut you off the innings. Simple as that, right? Anyway.
Say, Mark.
You'll learn very rapidly.
Say, Mark? Yeah, this is John. I just wanted to say that this is an anti-peeve. This is the first meeting that I've been to where it's kind of been a / in-person meeting and a Zoom meeting. And I think this went excellent. I'm able to see you and I can hear pretty clearly and hear Dan and the other people. So
I want to thank TJ. She does a spectacular job. I mean, this
Yeah.
is
This is a broken version, you guys. This is the broken
And
version.
guess what? It's gonna get better. This
And
is-
the only,
Bob Fraser is going to be setting us up with some high-tech
Yes.
AV wizardry coming up soon.
Yes,
So.
yes.
and I just want to say that the portion of the meal that I did not use by being on the Zoom, you can please use for scholarships. That would be,
We'll
I
take it.
I was just gonna say, I think it's worth noting to the comments that in the room, people are speaking out and speaking into the microphone, so if you can't hear it, maybe.
no, we can hear, I can hear it and it's very clear.
We're good
Really
now,
good.
better.
Yeah.
Every time somebody forgets to is why.
Okay, gotcha.
And I don't know about anybody else, but the Pima room here is just infinitely better than the
Way,
auditorium.
this is way better, yeah.
All right. I think we've said it all. For those of you who celebrate, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. I wish everyone a wonderful 2022. Any other comments? January 19th. Thank you very much, Derek. That is our next meeting. So be safe and have a lot of fun, because that's what I plan on.
Okay. Happy holidays. Take care.